Hello, I'm Dr. Alicia Partee. Let me take you somewhere first. A few years ago, I was standing in a dark bathroom in Norway, far from where I grew up, far from rooms that I was used to, rooms that knew my name. And a few days before, I had opened up my LinkedIn profile and deleted one word, pastor. I told myself that I was cleaning up a title. I was not. I was erasing a calling. I was quieting a part of myself that had answered something very sacred. And this was in response to, I remember, our Norwegian friend after moving to Norway. For me to fit in, he said, "Hey, I look at your LinkedIn profile and it looks crazy." He said, "You're going to have to choose one lane. You can't be a pastor and a corporate person and a marriage and family therapist and an entrepreneur. It really looks crazy to us. By the time we're 18 in high school, we know what we're going to be, and we are that for the rest of our lives." And so, not just the day before, but prior, I started to just cut at my LinkedIn profile, and I had chose the corporate because I thought that was one that can translate from America there pretty easily. After especially his Norwegian friend saying, with your experience, once you learn the language, you can get a job. And so you can imagine how I felt after cutting down my LinkedIn, applying for jobs, never getting one interview from a Norwegian company. And now looking, and here I am in this bathroom. It's winter, it's dark, and I'm in a mirror, and I stand there, and with no title or anything to hide behind, and I had to ask my question, a question that I'm so glad I asked, and it was, "Who am I?" Not what do I do, not what should I post, not what does this country want for me, but I literally said those words, "Who am I?" That question is where everything in the room and this room begins. So before we even touch prompts or talk about tools or workflows or automations or content and strategy, we have to start where I had to start, because before you ask AI to help you, to help amplify something that you're creating, you have to know who is doing the asking. So let me ask you what that dark room asked me. Who are you when nobody's looking, when nobody's grading you, I don't want to hear your title. Who are you? Not when people are clapping, not when the room approves, not when a title is attached, not when the platform is growing, not when the algorithm is rewarding you. Who are you when there's no applause, when there's no evaluation, when there's no external validation, and no one is telling you that you did a good job? And the question really matters to many leaders, because a lot of times we're building from fragmentation. At least I know I was. There's one person at work, or I had to be, because I was performing, right? And I had to be another person at church, and another person online, and another person in private, and another person when I was trying to be accepted. And eventually that kind of fragmentation will cost you. It costs you clarity, it costs you peace, it costs you authority, and it costs you your voice. So this is what the first lesson is about. I want to introduce a framework that really was birthed out of my experience. It's called I3, and it stands for identity, influence, and integration. And these three words are one architect. And here's the part that most people miss. So hold on to it. You cannot skip one and expect the others to hold. We will come back to that. But first, we're just going to walk through each one just to give you an overview. And the first one is identity. Identity. Who am I before anyone else gives me a role, a title, a platform, or a grade? And this is your, how important it is to work that core. This is your stable core. So your identity is not your title. It's not your income. It's not your follower count. It's not who's liking your posts. It's not your productivity. It's not how you're needed by other people. Identity is a part of you that remains when performance is removed. Scripture says it plainly. It says, before a word is even on your tongue, God already knows it. He has searched you. He knew you long before you hit any room or before any room knew you. And so sit with that for a second. The one who knows you most completely is not the one grading you in this world. The grading is something the world has taught us to expect. It's never been our foundation. Hmm. And this is where many leaders struggle because somewhere along the way we learn how to perform. Before we learn how to be whole, we learned how to adjust. We learned how to read a room. We learned how to survive systems. We learned how to become what people rewarded. But the blueprint room is not helping us become better performers. It's about helping you build from the truth of who you are. So the first question is not, what should I create? The first question is, who am I creating it for? Hmm. And the second word is influence. Influence says what happens when you enter a room. And there's one thing about influence. I remember just not being even aware of the power that we carry with us as leaders. And I want you to hear me clearly. Influence is it's not just that. It's not just the visibility. Influence is actually impact. It's the emotional, it's spiritual, it's relational, it's strategic. It's all of that we carry. And some people influence by inspiring. Some people influenced by controlling. Some people influenced by shrinking. Some people influenced by over explaining. Some people influenced by whatever the room rewards. Hmm. But healthy influence actually flows out of identity. I can't wait to go into this more with you guys because when identity is unstable, your influence becomes reactive. So you start chasing approval. Oh, I'm a witness for that. You start softening a message when you really should be clear. You start like overworking to prove your value or asking for permission to be who God has already created you and called you to be. But when identity is stable, your influence becomes intentional. And that's what I learned. You can walk into the room and not lose yourself. You can serve without shrinking. You can adapt without disappearing. And you can lead without performing. And that is the kind of influence that we're going to be building here. And the last word in the I3 framework is integration. And this word, it means a lot to a lot of people. And it could be when we look at old assimilation processes and things like that, integration was considered good, right? But integration really asks, can I bring the truth of who I am into a place I am called to serve? And that's what I was struggling with in Norway. Could I be me? Right? And this is important because integration is not assimilation. And that's exactly what I was trying to do when I moved. I wanted to belong. So I wanted to do whatever it took to find that belonging. Assimilation says I must become like them to belong. And integration says I can honor the room without abandoning myself. Actually, I came up with a word called auth-integration, but that wouldn't go with the I3, so I had to change it. But authentic integration is what I'm saying because assimilation costs you your identity, but integration allows you to bring your full self in alignment. And that doesn't mean that you act the same in every environment. Come on, I'm talking to leaders, emotionally intelligent people. Wisdom still matters, and context matters, and emotional intelligence still matters, but it does mean that you do not have to become a different person to be accepted. I always tell people that when you enter a room, or when I enter a room now, I am looking to, to see, the example I use is you would never pour a gallon of milk in an 8-ounce glass. And the reason you wouldn't do that is because it's not enough capacity. And sometimes I am learning that when I deal with people, people have different capacities. And I don't adjust who I am. I adjust how I pour based on that person's capacity. So I don't have to dim my light to be safe. You don't have to dim your light to be safe. You do not have to hide your faith to be strategic. You do not have to silence your story to be professional. You do not have to erase your culture to be credible. You can be the same person everywhere, and that is the heart of integration. Same person everywhere means you authentically show up, not assimilate, not dim your light, and experience no identity loss. I three, that's the architect. That's what that's the foundation of everything that we will be doing here before any tool is ever used. And so I want to come back to the thing I told you to hold on to. The three words are not three tips. Mm-mm. They are not a checklist for you to complete and move past. They are an architect that holds together because every part of it carries a weight. So you can't skip one. And you know how you have a three-legged stool? You can't take a leg off and think it's going to stand, right? So you can't have influence without identity, of course, but it becomes performance. And of course, you can have identity without influence, but it stays private. So, clarity, no one around you ever benefits from, right? You can chase integration without identity, but you'll only assimilate again. This time, better language, right? And so, this is what we have to learn. We are learning. I shouldn't say have to learn. What we're learning. Identity without influence is a foundation with no house built on it. Influence without identity is a house with no foundation under it. And integration is what happens when the whole structure finally holds and stop bracing for the next transition to expose a crack. Boy, that's why it's called architecture. It's not, it doesn't just explain you, it supports you. It reveals where the stress is. It tells you what needs reinforcing before the next room tests it. I3 is a structure that holds you through any transition. And don't we go through transitions? Let me say this. Change happens. It's inevitable. We know that. I think William Bridges talked about it. There's many books on change. It's inevitable. But that transition, that's where transformation happens. That's the psychological response to the change, right? And so a lot of times we see fragmentation in that. And so the hidden cost of fragmentation is what we're going to name this particular tension. It often looks successful actually from the outside. You're getting things done, right? That change happens, but you're still moving. And the change could be good or it could be bad. So that doesn't matter. But you're getting things done. People are relying on you. You know how to show up. You know how to produce. But inside you feel so tired and not physically tired. Can I say identity tired? Tired of watching it. I'm switching, I'll say. Tired of proving. Tired of translating yourself. Tired of wondering which version of you is acceptable in which room. And that's why the frameworks matters because regardless of the tool, AI tool that we use, that can help us absolutely move faster, but it will never heal a fragmentation or a fragmented foundation. Tools will amplify you, but they will also amplify anything that is unresolved. So before we build faster, we have to build truer. So here's the question I really want you to sit with. Where am I most tempted to become someone else in order to be accepted, respected, or rewarded? And that question will locate you faster than any assessment that you can take because the place where you feel tempted to become someone else is often the place where your identity needs strengthening. It may be in leadership, it may be in business, it may be online, it may be in your family, it may be in the boardroom, it may be in rooms where maybe you feel you're unqualified or unwanted. It may be in rooms where you feel unseen. Don't judge the answer. This is not that. Just notice it because awareness is not condemnation, awareness is a doorway. So before you move on to the next lesson, I want you to write down one place where you have been performing instead of leading with true identity. Just one, not 10, not your whole story, one place. And then write a declaration. I do not have to fragment to be effective. I do not have to fragment to be effective. I do not have to assimilate to belong, and I do not have to perform to be powerful. I can lead from identity. I can steward my influence. I can authentically integrate who I am with what I am called to build. And this is where we begin. Same person, every room. welcome to the Blueprint Room. Welcome. I really am glad you are here.